Dr. Sarah Chen stood before the quantum resonance chamber, her eyes fixed on the impossible. Inside the crystalline sphere, streams of light danced and twisted, moving not in the rigid patterns predicted by conventional physics, but flowing like music made visible. Behind her, the automated sensors of Lab 42, buried deep beneath the Himalayan mountains, whirred and clicked, recording data that would change humanity's understanding of the universe. "Play it again," she whispered to her AI assistant. The chamber filled with the opening notes of Mozart's Symphony No. 41, and the light streams responded, weaving new patterns that somehow maintained perfect quantum coherence. After 3 years of failure, Sarah had discovered something the rest of the galaxy thought impossible. Consciousness could directly influence higher dimensional space, and music was the key. The door hissed open, admitting Admiral James Hayes, his weathered face impossible to read. "Dr. Chen, the Galactic Science Council has rejected our research grant." Again. He handed her a datapad displaying the official response. "Earth's continued pursuit of consciousness-based dimensional manipulation is deemed primitive and potentially hazardous. Focus on approved technological pathways is advised." Sarah didn't even bother reading past the first paragraph. It was always the same, condescension wrapped in diplomatic language. "They still think we're children playing with forces we don't understand," she said, her voice tight with frustration. "Did you show them the latest data?" They wouldn't even look at it. Hayes moved closer to the chamber, watching the light dance. "The Arxon representative suggested we focus on simple ion drive technology instead. Said we weren't ready for anything more advanced." "Simple ion drives," Sarah scoffed, "while they zip around in their quantum folders, pretending they've mastered dimensional travel." She gestured to the chamber. "They don't understand. Their technology brute forces its way through space-time. We found something different, something better." Hayes nodded slowly. "Tell me again how it works." "In simple terms." Sarah took a deep breath, organizing her thoughts. "Every species in the galaxy approaches dimensional travel the same way. They build bigger engines, stronger field generators, more powerful computers. But they've hit a wall. No one can safely traverse beyond the 5th dimension. Want to know why?" She pointed to the dancing lights. "Because they removed the most important component, consciousness itself." "The music?" Hayes asked, watching the patterns shift with each new note. "The music is just a tool, a way to organize and direct consciousness. Humans have something special, something the other species engineered out of themselves in their quest for technological perfection. We dream. We imagine. We create art. Our minds naturally work in multiple dimensions. We just never knew how to harness it." Hayes was silent for a long moment, processing. "And this chamber proves it works. On a quantum level, yes. But we need to scale up. Build a ship." Sarah pulled up the designs she'd been working on. Not just any ship, one that combines technology with human consciousness and creativity. A vessel that doesn't fight against higher dimensions, but flows through them, guided by the collective consciousness of its crew. "The Council will never approve it." Sarah smiled. "Who said we're going to ask for permission?" Hayes raised an eyebrow. "You have a plan." "Project Resonance." She activated a hologram showing the sleek vessel unlike anything in Earth's fleet. "We build it in secret. Use the Council's dismissal as cover. They're so convinced we're primitive, they won't look too closely at what we're really doing." The Admiral studied the design. "This isn't just a ship, is it?" "It's a symphony," Sarah replied. "Every crew member will be chosen not just for their technical skills, but for their creative abilities. Musicians, artists, dreamers, combined with scientists and engineers. The ship itself will be an instrument, designed to amplify and channel human consciousness through higher dimensions." "And you think it will work?" Sarah gestured to the quantum chamber, where Mozart's final movement was creating patterns that defied conventional physics. "It already does, just on a smaller scale. Give me 2 years and the resources I need. I'll give you a ship that will change everything." Hayes watched the light dance for another minute before making his decision. "You'll have what you need, but keep it quiet. If the council finds out—" "They won't," Sarah assured him. "They're too busy laughing at our primitive technology to notice what we're really building. Let them laugh. In 2 years, we'll show them what humanity can really do." As Hayes left, Sarah turned back to her designs. The ship would be beautiful organic curves flowing into crystalline structures, spaces for both advanced technology and human creativity. At its heart would be a chamber much like this one, but large enough for an entire orchestra. The aliens thought humans were weakened by their emotions, their art, their dreams. They were about to learn just how wrong they were. In the months that followed, Project Resonance took shape in a hidden facility beneath the Pacific Ocean. While the official Earth government continued to submit modest proposals for conventional spacecraft, Sarah's team worked tirelessly on something revolutionary. They chose their crew carefully: quantum physicists who played violin, engineers who wrote poetry, pilots who painted. The ship grew like a living thing, its systems integrated with spaces for art and music. The engine room contained a full concert hall. Meditation chambers were as important as computer cores. Everything was designed to amplify and channel human consciousness in ways the galaxy had never seen. 1 year into the project, Sarah stood in the partially completed concert hall, running her hand along a wall that would one day channel the crew's collective consciousness into dimensional energy. Behind her, Dr. Maya Patel, the ship's chief engineer and accomplished cellist, was reviewing the latest tests. "The quantum coherence is holding," Maya reported. "When we played back yesterday, the field strength was 10 times what the aliens consider possible. And that's with just a string quartet." Sarah nodded. "Imagine what a full orchestra will do. Have you chosen the piece for the first test flight?" "Beethoven's Ninth, Fourth Movement." Maya smiled. "Seemed appropriate. Ode to joy as we rewrite the laws of physics." A warning light flashed, and both women tensed. Someone was approaching on the surface. The facility's camouflage systems were state-of-the-art, but they still held their breath until the all-clear sounded. Just another fishing boat passing overhead. "Sometimes I wonder what they'd do if they knew," Maya said quietly. "The Council, the other species, if they knew what we were building down here." Sarah thought about the countless dismissive responses to Earth's research proposals, the barely concealed contempt in every diplomatic communication. They'd spent so long convinced of their superiority, they'd forgotten how to imagine new possibilities. "That's our advantage." She looked up at the crystalline structures that would one day channel music into dimensional energy. "They think art is a distraction, emotion is a weakness, creativity is a fault to be corrected. They've spent millennia trying to perfect their technology while engineering these things out of themselves. And we kept them," Maya finished. "That's why this will work, isn't it? Because we're still complete." "More than complete," Sarah agreed. "We're still capable of growth, of dreams, of seeing beyond what is to what could be. The galaxy thinks we're children, Maya. But sometimes children see truths that adults have forgotten." The lights dimmed briefly as another test began somewhere in the facility. Soon, they would move from component testing to full systems integration. In less than a year, they would be ready for their first flight. Sarah smiled in the darkness, imagining the moment when the galaxy would finally understand what humanity had achieved. Let them laugh for now, she thought. The music is about to change. The Galactic Council chamber stretched a kilometer high, its crystalline walls designed to intimidate lesser species with their grandeur. Today, those walls reflected the barely contained amusement of 200 alien representatives as they watched Earth's delegation approach the central podium. Dr. Sarah Chen kept her face neutral, though her heart raced. Behind her, the hologram of humanity's newest ship, the Harmonia, floated serenely. Its organic curves and seemingly decorative crystalline structures had already drawn snickers from the assembled delegates. "Esteemed members of the Council," she began, her voice steady, For centuries, you've guided younger species in their development of space travel technology. Today, Earth presents something new. New? The interruption came from Archon Vextal, his crystalline crest flickering with purple amusement. Your vessel lacks even basic quantum stabilizers. Where are your reality anchors? Your dimensional dampeners? Sarah smiled slightly. The Harmonia requires none of those things. The chamber erupted in chittering laughter. A Meridian representative, her silver scales gleaming, leaned forward. Are we to believe you've achieved higher dimensional travel without the most basic safety equipment? Perhaps next you'll tell us it runs on dreams and starlight. More laughter. Sarah caught Admiral Hayes's eye from his position near the back of the chamber. He gave her the slightest nod. Everything was proceeding exactly as they'd expected. The Harmonia doesn't fight against dimensional barriers, Sarah continued once the laughter died down. It flows through them, guided by human consciousness and creativity. Vextal's crest turned deep blue, the color of concern. Consciousness, creativity. Dr. Chen, even our youngest know these are impediments to true technological progress. We engineered such irregularities from our species eons ago. Yet you've never managed stable travel beyond the fifth dimension. Sarah noted quietly. The chamber went silent. She had touched on a sore point. The seemingly insurmountable barrier that had frustrated the galaxy's most advanced species for millennia. And you believe your music ship can do better. The Meridian representative's voice dripped with scorn. Sarah touched a control on her podium. The hologram expanded, showing the Harmonia's interior. The concert hall at its heart drew fresh waves of laughter. You've built a pleasure cruise, someone called out. A tourist vessel for primitive entertainment. We've built humanity's first seventh-dimensional ship, Sarah corrected, and we invite the Council to observe its maiden flight next month. The laughter stopped abruptly. Vextal rose from his seat, his crest now pulsing with rapid colors. Seventh dimensional. Impossible. Your species barely understands basic fold space technology. This is an insult to the Council. Nevertheless, Sarah replied calmly, the invitation stands. In 30 days, the Harmonia will demonstrate capabilities your science has deemed impossible. We welcome any observers you wish to send. As her team left the chamber, Sarah could hear the arguments breaking out behind them. In a private anteroom, Maya waited with the rest of the Harmonia's core crew. That went well, Maya said, adjusting her cello case. Few had noticed that Earth's delegation included as many musicians as scientists. They'll come, Admiral Hayes predicted, not because they believe us, but because they can't resist the chance to see us fail spectacularly. Sarah looked around at her crew. The quantum physicist who painted galaxies, the engineer who wrote symphonies, the navigator who danced. Every one of them represented the perfect fusion of science and creativity that the older species had abandoned. Is the ship ready? Hayes asked. Maya nodded. Final calibrations are complete. The resonance chambers are tuned. We've been running simulations with the full orchestra. The dimensional harmonics are beyond anything we saw in testing. And the backup systems? Sarah smiled grimly. They won't be necessary. But yes, if something goes wrong, we can still get home the old-fashioned way. Not that anyone will notice those systems, given how fixated they are on our concert hall. The next month passed in a blur of preparation. As predicted, the Council assigned a full observation team, officially to verify Earth's claims, unofficially to document what they assumed would be a humiliating failure. The day of the demonstration dawned clear and cold. The Harmonia sat in Earth's orbital dock, its crystalline surfaces catching the first rays of sun. Sarah stood in the concert hall, now fully crewed with 60 musicians in addition to the regular bridge crew. Previous gen ships incoming, Maya reported from her station. Looks like half the Council decided to watch in person. Through the view screen, Sarah could see the alien vessels taking position, massive, angular ships bristling with conventional technology. Their presence made the Harmonia look even more out of place, like a violin in a room full of industrial machinery. "They're hailing us," communications reported. "Archon Vextal requests permission to speak with you." The Archon's image appeared on the main screen, his crest a swirl of competing colors. "Dr. Chen, there is still time to abort this demonstration. Your ship's design violates every known principle of dimensional physics. You risk not only your crew but potentially the fabric of space-time itself." "Thank you for your concern, Archon," Sarah replied politely. "But we're quite confident in our calculations." "Calculations?" His crest flared red. "You have a concert hall where your quantum core should be. This is not a game, Doctor. The dimensions are not to be trifled with." "No," Sarah agreed. "They're to be danced with." She nodded to Maya, who raised her conductor's baton. "Harmonia Actual. Out." As the alien vessels watched, the first notes of Beethoven's Ninth Symphony began to play. Inside the ship, 60 musicians performed while 200 crew members focused their consciousness through the crystalline resonance chambers. Sarah felt the familiar sensation of reality becoming fluid, of dimensions unfolding like the pages of a book. "They're scanning us," Maya reported between cello notes. "Going crazy trying to figure out how we're generating these fields without conventional equipment." Sarah smiled, feeling the music flow through the ship's systems, feeling the barrier between mind and machine dissolve. "Take us in, Helm. Let's show them what humanity can really do." The Harmonia began to move, not with the brutal force of conventional engines, but with the grace of a dancer. Around them, space itself seemed to ripple like water disturbed by rain. On the auxiliary screen, Sarah could see the alien observers' expressions of dismissive amusement turning to confusion, then disbelief, as their instruments registered what should have been impossible. The Harmonia wasn't forcing its way through dimensions. It was flowing between them, guided by the collective consciousness and creativity of its crew. "Fifth dimensional barrier approaching," Maya announced. The point where all other ships had to stop, had to force their way through with massive expenditures of energy. The Harmonia's orchestra swelled into the final movement. Joy, pure and powerful, resonated through the ship's crystalline structure. Sarah felt dimensions 6 and 7 unfold before them like a flower opening to the sun. And as humanity's first consciousness-guided ship danced through barriers that had stopped the galaxy's greatest species for millennia, Sarah thought she could hear, very faintly, the sound of laughter dying in the void. The real demonstration was about to begin. The silence in the observation ships was absolute. Where moments ago there had been dismissive chatter and mocking commentary, now only stunned disbelief remained. The Harmonia had just done the impossible, slipping through higher dimensional barriers as easily as a fish through water. "Seventh dimensional space achieved," Maya announced, her fingers still moving across her cello strings. Through the view screen, reality looked different here. Colors that had no names, geometries that shouldn't exist. All systems stable. The harmony is perfect. Sarah watched the readings with quiet satisfaction. Decades of being dismissed, of being told that human consciousness was a weakness, that art and emotion were primitive distractions, all proven wrong in a single moment. Then the emergency signal cut through everything. Multiple ships detected. The sensor officer's voice was urgent. Dropping out of fold space, signatures matched Drachnid raiders. Sarah's blood ran cold. The Drachnid, cybernetically enhanced pirates who preyed on civilian shipping lanes. They weren't supposed to be here. This was supposed to be a simple demonstration. Through the dimensional distortion, she could see them. 5 massive black ships, their hulls bristling with weapons. Below them, caught between the raiders and a gravity well, was a civilian transport. Refugee markings clearly visible on its hull. "This isn't part of the demonstration." Archon Vextal's voice crackled through the comm. "Return to normal space immediately. The Council's defense fleet will handle this situation." Sarah looked at the tactical display. The Council ships were too far away, too slow to reach the refugees in time. But the Harmonia was already in seventh-dimensional space, already moving in ways the raiders couldn't predict. "We're receiving a distress call from the refugee ship," communications reported. 300 civilians aboard. Their engines are damaged. Maya met Sarah's eyes across the bridge, bow still moving across her cello strings. "The concert hall is still at full power. We could." Sarah nodded. "All hands, battle stations. But keep playing." She opened a channel to the observation fleet. "Archon, with respect, we will not stand by while civilians are massacred." "You don't understand." Vextol's crest was strobing with alarm. "The Drachnid have sixth-dimensional targeting systems. Your ship has no weapons, no defensive capabilities that we can detect. You'll be destroyed." Sarah smiled. "You still don't understand what this ship really is." She turned to her crew. "Maya, take us in. Tchaikovsky's 1812 Overture, if you please." The music changed, becoming more martial, more powerful. The crystalline structures throughout the ship began to resonate at new frequencies. As the strings and brass built toward crescendo, the Harmonia moved in ways that should have been impossible. The Drachnid opened fire, their advanced targeting systems predicting where the Earth ship would be. But the Harmonia wasn't moving through normal space anymore. It flowed between dimensions like water through rocks, each note of music guiding its dance through reality. "How are they missing us?" one of the council observers demanded. "Their targeting is perfect. Perfect for ships that fight against dimensions," Sarah murmured. "But we're not fighting. We're flowing. We're dancing. We're singing." The Harmonia spun through seventh-dimensional space, its wake creating ripples of distortion that confused the raiders' sensors. The orchestra played on, each musician not just performing, but guiding the ship with their consciousness, their creativity, their shared purpose. "We're in position above the refugee ship," Maya reported. The music shifted again, lower, deeper, resonating through the crystalline hull. "What are you doing?" Vextol demanded. "You have no weapons." "We have music," Sarah replied. "We have consciousness. We have dimensions you've forgotten how to touch." She nodded to Maya. Now, the orchestra launched into the final. The crystalline structures that the aliens had dismissed as decorative began to pulse with energy. Seventh-dimensional space bent around the Harmonia like light through a prism. The energy of human consciousness, amplified by music and focused through crystal, reached out, and 5 Drachnid ships found themselves suddenly occupying the same dimensional space as their own weapon signatures. Internal systems collapsed as targeting solutions folded back on themselves. Engines stalled as power conduits twisted through impossible geometries. "Get the refugees," Sarah ordered. "Quick, while the raiders are blind." The Harmonia extended its dimensional field around the civilian ship, enveloping it in the same consciousness-guided space that had protected them. As the music reached its climax, both ships simply flowed away, leaving the Drachnid fleet crippled in their wake. In the observation ships, silence reigned again. They had just witnessed something that violated every principle of their physics, every rule of space combat they knew. A ship guided by music in mind had outmaneuvered the most advanced targeting systems in known space. "Refugees secured," Maya reported. "All 300 safe. Minor injuries only." Sarah opened a channel to the council fleet. "Archon, we'll leave the raiders to your defense forces. We'll deliver the civilians to the nearest safe port." "How?" Vextol's voice was barely a whisper. "How did you?" "You engineered consciousness out of your ships," Sarah replied. "You removed creativity, emotion, art. You tried to reduce space travel to pure mathematics. But the dimensions aren't just equations, Archon. They're music, they're dance, they're poetry. And humanity never forgot how to sing." As the Harmonia escorted the refugee ship to safety, Sarah could hear the council observers arguing, their certainties shaken. They had come to document a failure. Instead, they had witnessed something that would change galactic civilization forever. In the concert hall, the orchestra began a new piece, something softer now, soothing the rescued civilians' fears. The crystalline hull hummed in harmony, and seventh-dimensional space danced around them like auroras. Humanity hadn't just proven they could match the older species' technology. They had shown them an entirely new way to touch the universe. The real question now was, what would the galaxy do with this knowledge? Maya set down her bow, checking the dimensional readings. They'll never look at us the same way again. Sarah watched the stars twist through impossible colors. Good, she said. It's time they learned to listen to a new song. The Galactic Council's emergency session had been running for 3 days straight. The Grand Chamber, usually a model of diplomatic order, had descended into chaos. Species that hadn't spoken to each other in centuries were now engaged in heated debates. The Harmonia's demonstration and subsequent rescue of the refugee ship had shattered millennia of scientific certainty. Sarah stood at the observation window of Earth's diplomatic quarters, watching the massive fleet gathered outside. Some were there to protect Earth's interests, others to study the Harmonia, and more than a few, she suspected, to steal its secrets if they could. Another delegation requesting a tour of the ship, Maya reported, scrolling through the day's diplomatic messages. The Meridians this time. They're offering to share their entire database of quantum technology. Denied, Sarah said without turning. Just like all the others. Admiral Hayes nodded in agreement. They still don't understand. They think there's some trick to it, some technology they can copy. 3 different species have tried to scan the concert hall, Maya added. The Arxan representative actually asked if our musicians were some kind of organic computers. Sarah finally turned from the window. And that's exactly why we can't share this with them. Not yet. They're still thinking in terms of technology, of machines and mathematics. They don't understand that the music, the art, the consciousness, these aren't fuel for the engine. They are the engine. A soft chime announced another visitor. Dr. Venra, a Centaurian quantum physicist, entered with their characteristic floating grace. Unlike most species, the Centaurians had never fully abandoned artistic expression, maintaining a tradition of mathematical poetry that spanned millennia. Dr. Chen, Venra's crystalline form shifted through gentle colors, their species equivalent of a respectful bow. I hope I'm not interrupting. Not at all. Sarah gestured to a seat. I've read your paper on consciousness wave theory. It was one of our inspirations, a work that got me quietly dismissed from most serious scientific institutions. Venra's colors darkened briefly, until 3 days ago. Now everyone wants to know how I predicted something like the Harmonia might be possible. And what have you told them? That they're asking the wrong questions. Venra's form shifted to a teaching pattern. They want to know how to replicate your technology. But I've been watching your ship, studying the energy patterns it generates. This isn't about technology at all, is it? It's about remembering something the elder species forgot. Sarah smiled. Finally, someone who understood. When did your people split from the standard evolution path? When did you decide to keep your art? During the Great Rationalization, Venra's colors swirled with memory. When most species were engineering emotion and creativity out of themselves, we chose a different path. We believed mathematics could be poetry, that science and art were 2 expressions of the same truth. We were laughed at. Not anymore, Maya noted. No, Venra agreed. But now we face a different problem. The Council is dividing into factions. Some want to learn from Earth, to rediscover what their species lost. Others, their colors darkened again. Others see us as a threat. Hayes finished. You've proven that everything we thought we knew about dimensional physics was wrong, Venra said. More than that, you've shown that the path most species chose, the elimination of consciousness in favor of pure logic, was a mistake. Some would rather destroy that knowledge than face its implications. A new alert flashed on the diplomatic screen. Sarah read it and felt her heart sink, like the Drachnid raiders we encountered, the ones who attacked that refugee ship. What about them? Hayes asked. According to this report, They weren't raiders at all. Their ships were registered to the Hexan Consortium, one of the eldest species in the galaxy. The pirate attack was a test. They wanted to see the Harmonia's capabilities in combat. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. The Hexans were among the most technologically advanced species in known space. If they were moving against Earth, it's already starting. Venra's colors pulsed with concern. The elder species are choosing sides. Those who fear change are preparing to stop it. Those who seek redemption are looking to Earth for guidance. And humanity sits in the middle, Sarah murmured, with a technology that isn't really technology, a power that can't be stolen or copied, only remembered. The Harmonia floated serenely outside the window, its crystalline surfaces reflecting starlight. In its concert hall, the orchestra was practicing, not for dimensional travel this time, but simply for the joy of music. The ship's sensors showed how even these practice sessions created ripples in reality, gentle distortions in space-time that the other species' instruments couldn't quite explain. We could teach them, Maya suggested, help them rediscover their own creativity, their consciousness. Some don't want to remember, Venra cautioned. They've built their entire civilization on the supremacy of pure logic. The existence of the Harmonia challenges everything they believe about themselves, about their choices, about their future. A new alert, Priority 1 from Earth Command. Sarah read it and straightened. The Hexans aren't waiting. 3 of their battle fleets just crossed the outer rim, heading for Earth space. They're calling it a protective quarantine of a dangerous technological anomaly. 3 fleets. Hayes whistled. Even with the Harmonia's capabilities. We need help, Sarah finished. She turned to Venra. How many species are ready to remember? How many would stand with Earth, not just against the Hexans' weapons, but against the philosophy that created them? Venra's colors shifted to a complex pattern Sarah had never seen before. More than you might think. The Centaurians, certainly. The Meridians are divided, but their artist caste has been gaining influence since your demonstration. The younger species, those who haven't yet purged their creativity, are watching Earth closely. Then we need to give them something to believe in, Sarah decided. Maya, get to the ship. Start rehearsals immediately. Not combat drills. I want the full orchestra practicing the most beautiful music humanity has ever created. What are you planning? Hayes asked. Sarah's eyes were fixed on the Harmonia, on its perfect fusion of science and art, consciousness and physics. The elder species thought they could eliminate consciousness from the equation, reduce the universe to pure mathematics. We're going to remind the galaxy that reality is more than equations. It's symphony and dance, poetry and dreams. She turned to her team, her expression determined. Let them come with their battle fleets and their logic engines. We'll show them what they've forgotten. And maybe, just maybe, we'll help the galaxy remember how to sing. The Harmonia's concert hall had never been so full. Musicians from a dozen species filled the space. Centaurian crystalline resonators, Meridian quantum harps, and even a few Arxan who had remembered their species' ancient songs. They joined Earth's orchestra, creating harmonies that hadn't been heard in the galaxy for millennia. Sarah watched from the bridge as the Hexan battle fleets approached. Behind the Harmonia, a new kind of fleet had gathered. Ships from species who had chosen to remember, who had seen in Earth's breakthrough not a threat, but a chance at redemption. Hexan flagship is hailing, Maya reported from her station, her cello ready beside her. They're demanding our immediate surrender and the decommissioning of all consciousness-guided vessels. Put them through, Sarah ordered. The image that appeared on the main screen was pure geometry. The Hexans had long since abandoned organic forms in favor of what they considered perfection. The being addressing them was a complex crystalline structure, its facets arranged in mathematically precise patterns. This is High Commander 09 Alpha of the Hexan Concordat. The being's voice was artificially modulated to remove any trace of emotion. Your experiment with irregular dimensional manipulation ends now. Surrender, and your species will be re-educated in proper technological development. Sarah stood, facing the screen. Commander, we've analyzed your fleet's capabilities. You have enough firepower to reduce Earth to ash. But ask yourself, if consciousness-guided ships were truly inferior, would you need such force to stop them? Irrelevant, the commander responded. Your methods are chaotic, unpredictable. They cannot be properly quantified or controlled. They are a danger to the rational order of space-time itself. They are life. Sarah countered. Real life, not the sterile existence you've chosen. You didn't master technology, Commander. You surrendered to it. You made yourselves more like machines because you thought consciousness was a weakness. But it's not. It's the greatest power in the universe. You will comply or be destroyed. You have 10 minutes to deactivate your ships. The screen went dark. Sarah turned to her crew. Humans and aliens united not by technology, but by their willingness to embrace consciousness in all its beautiful, chaotic forms. All ships, battle stations, she ordered, but not like they expect. Maya, signal the combined orchestra. It's time for the galaxy to remember its first song. Throughout the fleet, musicians took their positions. On the harmonia, Maya raised her bow as crystal resonators hummed and quantum harps thrummed to life. The piece they had chosen was ancient. Parts of it had been found in the earliest recordings of every spacefaring species, a melody that spoke of stars and dreams, of consciousness touching infinity. The Hexan fleet opened fire. But the Allied ships didn't dodge or return fire in the conventional sense. Instead, they began to dance. The music flowed through crystalline hulls and consciousness-guided systems, and reality itself began to bend. Seventh-dimensional space folded around them like origami, making their movements impossible to predict or counter. They're trying to lock on with sixth-dimensional targeting, Maya reported between cello strokes. But the harmony is disrupting their calculations. Their weapons can't find us in this space. Sarah watched as the Hexan fleet's perfect formation began to break down. Their mathematical models couldn't account for ships that moved like music given form, that flowed through dimensions with the fluidity of thought and dreams. Second movement, she ordered. The music changed, became more complex. Now the Allied ships weren't just dodging. They were weaving a new pattern in spacetime. The crystalline structures that the Hexans had mocked as decorative began to resonate with frequencies that hadn't been heard since the universe was young. What are you doing? The Hexan commander's voice had lost its artificial modulation, showing genuine confusion for the first time. Our sensors can't. This isn't possible. This is consciousness, Commander, Sarah replied softly. This is art and science reunited. This is what your species forgot when you chose pure logic over true understanding. The music reached a crescendo, and reality rippled like a pond disturbed by rain. The Hexan fleet's weapons fired but found their targets had shifted into dimensions their targeting computers couldn't comprehend. Their perfect formations collapsed as ships tried to maneuver through space that no longer behaved according to their mathematical models. And through it all, the combined orchestra played on. The ancient melody spoke of stars being born, of consciousness awakening, of the moment when thinking beings first looked up at the sky and dreamed of touching infinity. It was mathematics-made music, physics transformed into poetry. Their fleet is in chaos, Maya reported. They can't maintain formation in this space. Their systems are trying to compensate, but they can't, Sarah finished, because they removed the one thing that could help them navigate this reality, their own consciousness. The Hexan commander's image appeared again, its perfect geometric form showing signs of distortion. What have you done to space itself? We haven't done anything to it, Sarah answered. We've just remembered how to sing with it, dance with it, dream with it. Your species knew how once. All species did. That's why this music speaks to something deep inside even your crystalline forms, because it's part of what you used to be. Around them, seventh-dimensional space continued to ripple and flow. The Allied fleet moved through it like a school of fish through water, their movements guided not by computers, but by the collective consciousness of their crews, their harmony with reality itself. "Stand down, Commander," Sarah urged, not in surrender, but in recognition. The universe isn't meant to be controlled or quantified. It's meant to be experienced, felt, sung. Your weapons can't defeat us because we're not fighting against reality. We're dancing with it. For a long moment, the geometric form was silent. Then, almost imperceptibly, one of its facets shifted out of its perfect alignment. "The music," it said finally, its voice losing more of its artificial tone. "I remember this melody. From before the great rationalization. When you still dreamed," Sarah finished gently. "When you still created art and music. When you saw mathematics as poetry and physics as dance. It's not too late to remember." One by one, the Hexan ships powered down their weapons. In the silence that followed, the ancient melody continued to play, carrying with it echoes of what all species once knew. That consciousness wasn't a weakness to be engineered away, but the greatest force in the universe. "The Council will need to reconvene," the commander said finally. "Everything we thought we knew about dimensional physics, about the proper path of species development, will be reconsidered," Sarah agreed. "Not to abandon technology, but to reunite it with consciousness. To remember that the most advanced civilization isn't the one that eliminates its humanity, but the one that embraces it in all its beautiful, chaotic, creative forms." As the Hexan fleet withdrew, Sarah looked out at the stars. No longer cold points of light to be analyzed and catalogued, but notes in an infinite symphony waiting to be played. Humanity hadn't just changed how the galaxy traveled through space. They had reminded it how to dream. And somewhere in seventh-dimensional space, reality itself seemed to hum along with the music of consciousness remembered.